Good afternoon, I'm Karen Holmes Ward. The process of desegregating Boston Public Schools was one of the most significant and infamous times in this city's history. In June 1974, federal judge Arthur Garrity found that the Boston School Committee had, quote, intentionally brought about and maintained racial segregation, unquote, in the Boston public schools. Busing began that September, and many students were met with resistance from white residents. Rocks were thrown at buses carrying black students, and violence erupted in several neighborhoods. Some of Boston's current leaders, including former Mayor Kim Janey and Michael Curry, president and CEO of the Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers, were among the children who were part of the desegregation of schools. Curry is now a part of a committee called the Boston Desegregation and Busing Initiative. As the 50th anniversary of the historic federal court decision approaches, a series of forums will be held to discuss the history and the long-term impacts of that decision. The busing crisis is typically painted as a conflict between black and white residents of Boston, but there were other students overlooked and ignored. In 1975, parents of students in Chinatown were notified that their children would also be bused to predominantly white schools. Mothers came together to express their concern and formed the Boston Chinese Parents Association. When their demands for the schools to meet the safety, staffing, and language needs of the families were ignored by the school committee, they organized a 3-day boycott, which ultimately spurred change. Joining us today are Suzanne Lee, a former Boston Public School teacher, principal, and community activist, and also Michael Liu, activist and author, who has written about this moment in Boston's history. In his book, Forever Struggle, Activism, Identity, and Survival in Boston Chinatown. Thank you both for being here. So, Suzanne, in 1975, you were teaching English to some Chinatown residents when the school district sent letters notifying families that their children were going to be bused to predominantly white schools, and you had to translate this communication to some of them. What were some of their concerns? What was the reaction?
Well, actually, I taught English to the mothers on Saturday, but I was also a first-year teacher, classroom teacher that taught 4th and 5th grade at the old Josiah Quincy Elementary School right in Chinatown. And it was the last day of school that some of the mothers came to me and said, what does this letter say? And it's all in English, of course. It just said that your child will not be coming back to this school next year. I said, where are we going? I said, it did not say. And being a first-year teacher, I have no clue what's going on. So I said, well, let's find out. So I began to ask them who got the letter.
What was the reaction, though, of the mothers in that moment?
Well, they were kind of shocked. They said, well, what does this mean? We're not coming back here. Where are we going? Well, nobody knew.
So what actions did the parents or really the mothers take?
Well, they talked to each other. They brought a whole lot of folks together and found out that almost everybody in the neighborhood received such a letter. So they were obviously very concerned and very upset that why all of a sudden this happens and they know nothing about it.
Michael, when the plan to desegregate schools was made, were Chinese and Latino students factored into the plan?
No, the plan only addressed the issues and concerns of the African American plaintiffs and also address the white students communities that dominate the school system. And this whole episode actually took place. What became very significant for the Chinatown community because it came at a time when the community was changing both demographically and politically, and the Chinese population had been restricted for decades or excluded, and the 1965 immigration reform led to a large influx of families, which led to more and more Chinese students coming into the schools, and the first Chinese American teachers entering the public school system, and they weren't met with open arms, as you can imagine.
That's very interesting. So as this unfolded, did many of the schools and teachers want the Chinese students in their classrooms or not?
Well, I think Suzanne has a story, but
Okay, go ahead.
I think Well, I just want to mention that during the struggle between the African American plaintiffs and the school system, at times the school committee would classify the Chinese students as white in order to get the right numbers, against the court orders.
Okay, Suzanne, your story.
Well, it's a story of how we always been used, and this is part of that, as the wedge, that we can be white sometimes and others at other time, depending on the situation. So there are a lot of teachers that actually want the Chinese student because they've seen as good, obedient, quiet students.
Big model citizens.
Yes, even at that time, still stereotypes of Chinese student being good, studious students. So people do want them, but whether or not, they don't know anything else about the students.
So let me ask you this: when the concerns of the mothers were dismissed as this unfolded, a boycott of the schools was organized. Were you surprised that the boycott was so successful?
Absolutely floored me, because we don't get that kind of news like today, right? So when I got the call to organize the mothers to have this meeting with the Justice Department to talk about their concern, and when we organized the meeting in 3 days' time. And that's when we found out how successful the boycott was. And it was 90%.
So this went all the way to the Justice Department meeting?
Yes.
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 And
because it was successful, that the Justice Department wanted to meet with them.
Michael, this is a great story of the power of activism, isn't it? Right. But it's not one that we often hear in the narrative of the busing crisis. So why is that?
Well, I think, I think the stories of the Asian American communities, Chinese American communities, have been undertold. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I think this country has a long history of racism against all people of color, which the African Americans have suffered the most, but of all people of color. And I think it's very difficult for them, I think, for the population as a whole to realize to the extent to which racism is ingrained. For example, I just want to give an example. It's like people know about the lynchings of African Americans throughout, the struggle. But the largest lynching in U.S. history was in Los Angeles in 1871. 15 Chinese were lynched because they were trying to drive them out of the city. And 200 cities and towns in California in the 19th century drove out Chinese from their borders. So I'm just saying that it's very hard, I feel it's very hard for the population to recognize that the country was built upon this sort of treatment of Native Americans, Mexican Americans, Chinese Americans, and African Americans.
Histories that often fall by the wayside. There's an expression about, who tells the story. The person that tells the story makes up the history, right? And if marginalized communities aren't in a position to tell the story and write the history books, we don't make it into the history books, right?
And oftentimes, because our population is small in comparison, that we've been used to divide among the other minority grouping, that we are still called others in a lot of situations. And we're off, even to present days, it's being used.
Let me ask you, Suzanne, how did this boycott influence you in the long term? And is the Chinese Parents Association continuing to be active?
The Chinese Parents Association is not active in that form, but through that action, we engage a large number of immigrant women who became, in a lot of ways, leaders in our community in every single struggle, in the workplace, in rent control, or in fighting for affordable housing. They look back to that experience when we came together and took action. They saw that power. It doesn't matter if they didn't speak fluent English, but when they come together and raise that stand, that they can do great. So that's to me is the legacy.
All right, Suzanne Lee and Michael Liu, I want to thank you both for joining us to share this overlooked history.
Okay.
All right.
You.
You can learn more about this history in Michael Liu's book. It's called Forever Struggle, Activism, Identity, and Survival in Boston's Chinatown.